The midwife's hands are stained black with charcoal dust when she pulls you from your mother's womb in 1750 feudal Japan. Welcome to the world, kid. You've just been born into a Katana Kaji family, swordsmiths whose lives are ruled by fire and steel. Your fate was hammered into steel before you took your first breath. Where other babies get lullabies, you get the rhythmic clang-clang rest of your father's hammer echoing through paper-thin walls. That sound? It's your heartbeat, your destiny, your funeral march, all rolled into one. Your house sits on the village edge like a scar, next to the forge that belches smoke day and night. Neighbors bow respectfully when your father passes, but they make the sign of protection behind his back. They whisper that swordsmith families are cursed, blessed with divine skill, but haunted by the souls trapped in their blades. When you start crawling, you don't head for toys. You crawl straight toward the forge fire, drawn to heat and smoke like some kind of demonic moth. Your first word isn't mama, it's not even papa, it's tetsu, which means steel. The curse is already in your blood. Childhood? What's that? While other 5-year-olds play with wooden toys, you're handed chunks of charcoal to arrange by size. Your playground is a workspace where molten metal could blind you, and hammer blows echo like thunder. You learn to move like a ghost around the forge because startling your father mid-strike could ruin hours of work and earn you a beating that'll leave marks for weeks. Your daily routine? Pump the bellows until your arms scream. Haul charcoal until your back aches. Scrub floors black with metal dust until your knees bleed. Other kids learn poetry. You learn steel grades by sound. High carbon rings like a bell. Low carbon thuds like wet wood. Neighborhood kids call you Kemuriko, or smoke child, and run when you approach. You smell permanently of charcoal and burnt metal. Your clothes are singed. Your hair shortened by sparks. You don't have friends, just the forge, and the growing realization this is all you'll ever know. Your formal training begins with purification rituals. Ice-cold mountain water until your hands are numb. 3 days of fasting while watching every hammer blow. Clean hands, empty stomach, focused mind, your father recites. Impurity creates flawed steel. You're learning that swordsmithing isn't just craft, but rather religion. You're about to become a very miserable monk. Your first lessons involve folding scrap metal for hours. Heat to cherry red, hammer flat, fold over, repeat until your muscles scream. Do it wrong, skip dinner. The daily routine becomes prison. Wake pre-dawn, 14 hours shaping metal through controlled violence. Collapse onto straw mats reeking of smoke. You develop forge lung early, a persistent cough from breathing metal particles. By age 10, you can predict weather by how your destroyed lungs feel. Your first serious burn comes at 11. Molten steel splashes across your forearm, leaving a permanent teardrop scar. You cry for 30 seconds before your father slaps you silent. Steel teaches through pain, he growls. Smart boys, listen. Scars become your signature marks. Each mark, proof you're learning lessons most people never survive. At 13, you're deemed worthy to handle tamahagane, sacred jewel steel delivered by Tatara smelters. Your hands shake holding it. One mistake could bankrupt your family for generations. You fold, weld, and refold again and again, often around a dozen cycles for the outer steel. Not chasing a magic number, but chasing even carbon and clean grain. Heat perfectly, hammer without cracking, pulled exactly right. Your father watches every move. Bamboo stick ready to correct mistakes through pain. Your blood offering happens accidentally. A chisel slips, opening your palm. Blood hisses on hot steel and vanishes instantly. Your blood joins the steel now, your father says. Every sword carries part of your soul. Sounds poetic until you realize this means decades of literally bleeding for your craft, while samurai get all the glory. The quenching terrifies you the most. After weeks of work, the blade's fate depends on one moment. In a darkened forge, you watch the heat by color, then plunge edge down into the water. Get the heat, angle, or color wrong, and the blade warps or cracks. Weeks of work, gone in a hiss. Your first successful quench feels better than your first kiss, which actually never comes. At least not anytime soon. Your first failure makes you cry harder than watching your childhood die. You don't smelt your own steel. Tatara smelters deliver tamahagane. You sort plates by fracture and hardness, mizuheshi and koari, and make oroshigane to tweak carbon for forging. The real craft starts here. Each step could destroy everything. Each decision affects whether a samurai lives or dies. The weight sits on your shoulders like lead. Your specialty becomes a secret yakibatsuchi mix, Clay, water, charcoal powder, and ground stone painted thin along the edge and thick on the spine to script the hamon. Apply it wrong and the blade falls. You rough shape and foundation polish. Then a togishi spends weeks revealing grain and hamon you hid in the steel. Your first masterwork emerges like captured moonlight. The hamon resembles cherry blossoms on still water, an accident you'll spend decades trying to recreate. For one moment, you understand the obsession. Then reality hits. You're 20, physically destroyed, socially isolated, and you've made one decent blade. Only 40 more years of L to go. Samurais start visiting, drawn by whispers of your skill. They're entrusting their lives to your work. The pressure could crush diamonds. In an age of Tokugawa peace, your swords decide status, honor, and reputation more than battle lines. The reputations can kill careers just as surely. Your first major commission, 3 months of 18-hour days for a young samurai. When you present it, he tests the edge, nods curtly. Adequate, he says, pays 2/3 the price, and walks away like you're invisible. The hierarchy becomes clear. Samurai depend on your work for their lives, but you're still just a craftsman. You make the blades but can't wear the daisho. At best, a townsman's wakizashi when traveling, never a samurai's privileges. You're respected, but outside their circle. You create tools of honor, but can never claim honor. You forge instruments of glory, but live in shadow forever. A blade you forged cracks in a duel. The client's family demands compensation, and your name sours across the province. Sleep gets rare when you're wondering which sword might fail, and whose reputation will pay for your mistakes. Your reputation peaks. Clans compete for your services. Blades command village-buying prices. But fame brings impossible expectations. Every sword must surpass previous work, each edge sharper than humanly possible. You're creating miracles on demand while your body crumbles. Apprentices bow when you enter, terrified to displease their legendary master. You try being kinder than your father, but the craft demands brutality. Soft training creates weak smiths. Weak smiths produced flawed blades. Flawed blades get people killed. You perpetuate cycles of suffering in the name of excellence. The physical toll accumulates. Eyesight dims from forge fires. Lungs feel like leather bags filled with charcoal dust. Arthritis attacks your hands. You develop tremors, forcing technique modifications. Despite mastery and fame, you live modestly in the same soot-stained house. Samurai wield glory your work creates. You remain hidden behind forge fire, essential but invisible. Your hands shake during delicate work, tremors affecting the precision that made you legendary. You delegate critical work to apprentices while taking the credit. It feels like theft, but the alternative is watching your life's work collapse. Whispered gossip starts. The old man's losing his touch. Apprentices exchange glances, wondering when you'll step aside. A high-ranking retainer's commission nearly ends in catastrophe when trembling hands mar a critical quench. The blade survives, barely, but you know how close you came to disgrace. Your career ends not in triumph but gradual decay. Each project a desperate gamble against deteriorating abilities. You shift to teaching and quality control. Dignified, but devastating for someone who shaped steel with his own hands for 40 years. You touch finished blades obsessively, remembering when your hands created such beauty instead of merely evaluating others' work. At 58, when your hands can barely hold the hammer steady, one final commission arrives that changes everything. A young samurai named Takeshi, preparing for what seems like a hopeless duel against overwhelming odds, requests your finest work. Something in his eyes, desperation mixed with honor, reminds you of your younger self. Against all logic, you pour your remaining strength into one last masterpiece. Working in secret, you use the last of your precious tamahagane, folding it with techniques refined over 5 decades. Your trembling hands somehow find their old precision when it matters most. The hamon that emerges resembles flowing water under moonlight, the most beautiful tempering line you've ever achieved. 3 months of agony produces a blade that seems to hum with your life's accumulated skill. When you present the finished sword to Takeshi, he draws it slowly, testing the balance. The blade captures the light like captured lightning, and for a moment, even this battle-hardened warrior's eyes widen in awe. "I have never held such perfection," he whispers, bowing deeper than any samurai has ever bowed to you. As he sheathes your masterwork and departs for what might be his final confrontation, you allow yourself one rare moment of pride. Takeshi returns from his duel victorious against impossible odds. But instead of claiming sole credit for his triumph, he does something unprecedented. He kneels before his lord and declares that victory belonged not to his sword arm, but to the master craftsman whose blade made the impossible possible. This victory is yours, honored smith. He announces to all who will listen. Your steel guided my hand. Your spirit won this battle. Words of your last blade reaches a daimyo. You earn domain patronage, a stipend, and an honorary title that finally puts your name beside your work. For the first time in 60 years, you step from shadow into sunlight. Your name is spoken with reverence normally reserved for legendary warriors. Poets compose verses about the smith whose blade turned defeat into triumph. You realize that while most craftsmen die forgotten, you've achieved something rarer than fame. You've been honored by the very warrior class that your work has served in silence for so long. You die peacefully 3 years later, not in shadow, but bathed in the respect you always deserved. Your funeral draws samurai from across the land, including Takeshi, who carries your final masterpiece as an honor guard. Your gravestone bears new words: Master Swordsmith, whose steel carved victory from defeat. The blades outlive you, but now they carry your name forward as a legend. Sometimes, after decades of suffering in shadow, even the most forgotten souls find their moment in the sun. In Japan, steel shapes honor, but in darker rooms across the globe, tools shape fear.